What's up YouTube? My name is Cantsturtle, and welcome to Fantendo Roast. Man, I am terrible at doing these things monthly, aren't I? Since it's November, I decided now might be a good time to rip off Peanut Butter Gamer and talk about a Zelda game. Specifically, we're going to be talking about Puzzle & Dragons, The Legend of Zelda Edition. I don't know, maybe that's cheating or something, but it has Zelda in the title, so I'm going to count it. The opening paragraph basically sets this up as Puzzle & Dragons Z, but with a Zelda skin. It even has a hub town and everything. It's also apparently available in a double pack with Puzzle & Dragons X, but that's not a real page that exists, so let's ignore that. Now, before we dive into the story and, the meat of the page, let me just say that as someone who owns the Puzzle & Dragons double pack with Z and Super Mario Edition, I can see the potential in this idea. I mean, Z even calls its levels dungeons. This was made for a Zelda crossover. However, at the same time, Z takes its story very, not seriously, you know? Like, I haven't finished the game yet, because Anubisis is a load of bull honky, but the story is very light-hearted and jokey, which I'd say generally doesn't mesh too well with the Zelda series. Yeah, the villains can be entertaining sometimes, but at the same time, they can still be threatening when push comes to shove, which is something some of the bosses in Z completely lacked. Then again, Triforce Heroes happened, so anything's possible, I guess. On with the story. Long ago, some dude could control the 5 elements. He passed his wisdom on to 5 people who became the elemental sages, and then thousands of years later, orbs happened. I mean, at least it makes more sense than Super Mario Edition's story. Suddenly orbs overnight, and Bowser can use them! Anyway, Link, a young boy living in Castletown, the capital of Hyrule. That is not a complete sentence. Zelda loses her scarf, and Link gives it back to her, so she gives him a bracelet that supposedly belonged to the Avatar. I mean the champion. Then suddenly, evil. Some dude named Zelda arrives with some monsters, and he kidnaps Zelda, cause he wants to marry her or something. Link tries to fight Zelda, but the dude absolutely kicks his ass, because all Link has is a sword. Once again, the dude making this page is doing a much better job of justifying the Puzzle & Dragons gameplay than the Super Mario Edition did. You can't jump on the Goombas, you gotta use orbs! Ugh. So the bracelet starts glowing, and then a Deku Scrub and an Octorok pop out. Fun times all around. Tutorial fight ensues, I guess, and then they beat Zelda, but he probably wasn't actually trying or whatever, and he leaves with Zelda. Then a random fairy named Jinx pops up and tells Link he needs to collect the Triad Charms and find the Elemental Sages. Who is Jinx? Why is she here? And how did she get here? Anyway, that's basically the story. Solid premise, very good job justifying the Puzzle & Dragons gameplay, and a villain that doesn't seem too out of place considering Triforce Heroes has happened. I mean, you could have gone with something like Zelda having some sort of orb superpower inside of her that Zelda wants to get at, but I suppose that's sort of been done to death already in the Zelda series, so I can forgive the more childish motivations here. On to the characters. Link, you know who he is. Apparently, even though it wasn't mentioned in the story section, he's using the Triad Charms to look for the Aeos? He's looking for the Aeos sword. I mean, I thought the point was that you can't just beat Zelda with swordplay. You gotta use the orbs, but okay then. Zelda. She's Zelda. Moving on. Zelda, the main villain dude. He has the Chaos Sword, which was apparently made by Ganon. I am now completely expecting Ganon to usurp the role of main villain, just like he did in Hyrule Warriors. Or at least I would be expecting it if it were a real game. Jinx, it's still not explained where the frick she comes from, moving right along. Now we get on to the sages. And I start to have some serious issues. Starting with Carlo, the Sage of Wood. He's apparently a mink, which are anthropomorphic animals who live in the forests, but often come to visit villages and cities and such. No. This is a mink. They're not anthropomorphic. They don't talk. They're just animals. Like, maybe this seems like nitpicking, but you could have actually tried to come up with, an actual name for your fictional species, instead of just borrowing the name of a real species of animal. I mean, really, I can't see this Carlo guy as anything other than a gosh darn weasel now. Even ignoring the name, why does this race exist? What about the Kokiri? The Koroks? The Minish? Why did you make a new race to fill the role of the Sage of Wood when there are plenty that already exist that could easily fill it? Next is Gadunia. You're not even trying. Sage of Fire, Goron, I'm imagining him as a recolor of Darunia. Apparently he lives on Death Mountain. I really hope that's a typo, because word plays is a Mario thing, not a Zelda thing. It makes it sound like this is supposed to be a crossover with Mario instead of Puzzle and Dragons. Ruda has just as little thought put into her name. She's the Sage of Water, and is also a surfer at Zora's Coast. Sure, whatever. Next is Impa, the Sage of Dark, a la Ocarina of Time. However, instead of being an old wizened attendant or a badass ninja guardian, she's Zelda's handmaiden and a childhood friend. And she's goth. I don't know, that really bothered me when I first heard it, but I can't put into words why. Maybe I just can't see Impa as anything other than a badass warrior after Hyrule Warriors. I don't know, this interpretation of Impa still bothers me, because I feel like I wouldn't be able to take her seriously. Maybe I just have a skewed perception of what goth is. Finally, we have Lao Shi, an austere monk. Okay, at least you've come up with a proper name for this species. What are they? Asteres are human with bird wings. No. You see, that already exists in the Zeldaverse. They're not Asteres. No, they're the Rito tribe. Perhaps you've heard of them. I know they're a little more than just humans with bird wings, but the point still stands that Asteres are similar enough to Ritos that they're completely unnecessary and redundant. The lack of Rito appearances bothers me enough in the real Zelda games, don't go shoving a bootleg Rito in my face here. The only reason I can think of that you'd make this other race of bird people instead of using the Rito is that you're trying to take the Zelda timeline into account. You know, because the Rito evolved from the Zoras, so you can't have both in the same game. Except that argument doesn't hold here because this is a non-canon spin-off, like Hyrule Warriors. It's not part of the timeline, and the story proves that because you have these orbs being a thing that exists. You can have both of them if you want. You don't need to make a cheap knockoff in order to use Ritos in a game that already has Zoras. Seriously. Even if you didn't want to use Ritos, you still didn't need to make a brand new race to fill the role of a Sage of Light. I mean, the Great Fairy comes to mind, and I'm sure there are other races that I just can't think of at the moment. It just feels so unnecessary. I get that you might want to stretch your creative muscles, but then I'd suggest making a page for a proper Zelda game instead of a spin-off. The most original stuff Gung Ho did for the Super Mario Bros. Edition was taking some of the enemies and recoloring them like a Sonic OC. Do you really think they'd make some completely original races to add to the Zelda canon, when there's a bunch of other races that already exist for them to use? Anyway, the partners. Is that what they're called? I thought they were monsters. You're probably right, I haven't played Puzzle and Dragons in quite a while. Okay, let's see what you got. Why am I not surprised? Well, I mean, probably because I read through the page before writing the script, but shut up. I mean, I'm pretty sure I've said all I need to say about unfinished pages back in my Amiibo video, so I won't harp on about it here. Then in the comments, the page creator and this other dude talk about how this page has potential and the other dude wants to help out, but apparently all the work has gone on the creator's talk page and not on the wiki page, so I'm going to choose not to include that in this video. He also mentions that the game's apparently supposed to have a toon art style, which makes me even more mad about the bootleg Rito. Well, that was a disappointing finish. I mean, apparently some work has gone on behind the scenes, but the page hasn't been updated since April, so I'd call this the finished product. You know what? No, we're not ending the video here. Like Mr. Other Dude says, this page has potential. And so, what we're gonna do right now is a little collaboration, you feel me? I'm gonna take your little incomplete list of partners here, and from memory, off the top of my head, no research, I'm gonna give you enough monsters to make sure you have 3 partners for each element. You ready? Because I'm only gonna say this once. I mean, it's a video, so I guess you could just to play it back again, but whatever. Okay, going in the order you've listed them, we'll start with fire. You've got Armos, alright, decent start. Let's add in Dodongos and Lizalfos. Next up is water, in which you've got Octoroks. I'd add in Choo-Choos and Tektites. I don't know if Tektites are usually associated with water, but I seem to remember them appearing in the water temple, so that's good enough for me. My memory is terrible. For wood, you've got Mini-Blins, and despite mentioning a Deku Scrub in the story, you didn't actually put it in the list, so add him in there. Then you only need one more to reach 3, so I'll give you a Deku Barber. On to the elements you provided nothing for. I'll start with Dark, since you've listed Impa before Laoshi in the character section. Dark is probably the easiest to fill in. I'll go with Skulltulas, Stalfos, and Dark Nuts. Finally, Light, which was the hardest one for me, but I'd ultimately go with Beamos, Buzzblobs, and Anti-Fairies. Bada bing, bada boom, you've now got 3 partners for each element. You're welcome. I don't know why I even did that. Nothing's gonna come from this. The dude probably won't even see the video, and if I tried to add them to the page myself, the admins would probably undo my edit. Seriously though, I think the point of that exercise was kinda to show how easy it is to fill a list of creatures like that. I'm someone who's only really finished 2 Zelda games, not counting spin-offs like Link's Crossbow Training or Hyrule Warriors. And I have a pretty terrible memory. And yet, I was able to remember enough Zelda critters off the top of my head to fill in that many partners. And yet this dude left the list at just 1 partner each for the first 3 elements, and none for the last 2. I'd say don't make the page if you're not prepared to fill it in, but then I'd probably come off as a massive hypocrite. That's basically all I have to say about this page. There's potential here, but it wasn't acted upon, and it's gone to waste. That and the S tiers particularly irk me. Before I go, I'd just like to mention that one of my viewers who also uses Fantendo seems to have located one of the pages I've made. I mean, it's not like I was trying to hide them. If you want to try and roast me, go ahead. The whole foundation of this show is that no one should be immune to criticism, and that includes me. I'm fully aware of how terrible the stuff I used to make on that site is. Just keep in mind that those pages are going to be left there and not edited. I have no desire to return to those ideas. There's only one of those fictional universes that I actually posted to Fantendo that I still care about anymore, and it's not even in my top 5. Those will just stay there as a relic of a time when I made content that's somehow even worse than what I make now. I mean, seriously, I was in my final years of high school when I made those. What the hell is wrong with me?